So I wanted to share a couple things with you today. I wrote a couple things down that were coming to me, but I never know how this is going to go. So let's just take it from here. So there's this question being asked about if or whether we have free will. And so when I was tuning in, so I have my own ideas about this, right? But when I was tuning in with my higher self, I was receiving something from the Bible that says, "Thy will, not my will, be done." This is basically suggesting that we don't technically have free will. However, I think that we do have free will. However, if you've ever noticed that if you're exercising your right to free will and you're choosing when you're like in your ego, or too much in your ego and your desire, and you're choosing things based on what you want, not what maybe your higher self wants you to do, that's maybe not necessarily aligned with your truest self. So the true self actually is your higher self. That is your truest self, is your spirit self, your highest self, that knows everything about your life and why you're here, and what it wants to experience in this lifetime. So when we do things that are not aligned with our higher self, that are not aligned with higher divine will, we often find, at least personally I find, that I fuck myself. Something will happen that is not aligned with who I really am. It's just, and it will really look bad on us. Like we'll do something or say something that is just said or done out of line. It is not aligned with higher guidance. It's not aligned with the truth of who we really are. It's just something that happens by default. And this is also one of the reasons why that I like to say that we're not in charge of our own choices sometimes, because a lot of our choices are being influenced by the things that we're perceiving in our environment. That also includes stuff that we're watching on screens, TV shows, movies, social media, the news, that's also part of our environment, only because the subconscious does not differentiate between real life and screen life. It just doesn't do that. It just assumes it's the same thing. This is also the reason, by the way, that when we're watching a movie, we can sometimes get emotional or upset, where we jump off our seats because of something, right? Because the subconscious can't differentiate if it's real or not. It just sees it and it assumes it's a part of your reality. So when we tell our kids, "Oh, it's just a movie," technically we all know it's just a movie. The conscious mind understands it's just a movie, it's not real. But the subconscious does not understand that. It doesn't see it that way. And so this is why we really do have to be a bit more conscientious about what we're pulling in and taking in, because it can influence our choices in the long term. It can actually seep into our subconscious and change our behavior and our responses and our words even, right? Because we copy, emulate. So a lot of things that we're hearing becomes a part of our vocabulary. So then we start to talk the same way as, for example, the Trailer Park Boys that we've been watching the last couple of weekends, right? And so that isn't our true self. That is actually our manipulated self. It's not our true self, right? Our true self is our higher self. Our higher self is the one that has created us or manifested us in this existence. And it also, the higher self is the part of you that knows your future, that knows everything. And this is why that I largely in my life have felt like my life's predetermined. Only because every time I connected with my higher self, or allowed my higher self to really deeply connect with me, I would know things about the future. And I would sometimes be a little bit disillusioned. I'm like, do I not have any say in anything? Can I not just create and manifest? And then, and it says, you have free will to choose whatever. It's just that most people are not able to access their future memory like that. So most people think that they're fully in control of their choices and everything. And that's absolutely valid. You should feel like you are in control of your life. You should feel like, at least largely, that you are the determined factor of how your life is going to go. But the truth is that there's many different perspectives on that will probably, that at least taught me that I'm actually not always in control of everything in my reality. And even when I look at my life and I look at my past 10 years, there's many things that I had done in the past that I would never do today, because I see now that it wasn't aligned with something that was really of me, of my truest self. It wasn't aligned with higher divine will. And now they're saying it was aligned with higher divine will because without the actions they had taken in the past, they would have never been able. That's what they're saying. They had to push me out of there, that they had to do something so that I would be able to become the person that I was destined to become. So sometimes we don't want to listen to our higher guidance, right? Because our ego says, I don't want that. I want this, right? I desire that. And this is why sometimes desire is seen like a bad thing. But desire is actually a drive that we all need, that we need our ego to be able to not just survive, but to be able to thrive and have a good life. But our higher self is really the part of us that we need to remember, because it desires for us to remember who we really are, right? And so that we can become the people that we're meant to become in this lifetime. And I think sometimes we forget that what our higher self came here to do is actually what we really want to do too in the end. You know, it's just sometimes it feels difficult or it feels like uncomfortable, right? And sometimes you really got to put yourself out there ahead of what you think that you're capable of, to step into becoming the person that you're meant to become in this life. This is another thing that was coming through earlier. You really sometimes, and I like to say don't put the wagon before the horse, but sometimes you actually have to do that a little bit. You have to step into the person that you want to become, or that you know you're supposed to be, or that you aspire to becoming, or the thing that you're passionate about, before you feel that you have the skills and abilities to actually do it. So when I worked as a medical lab technologist my whole life, since I was 17. So, and to come from a very scientific, technical background like that, you know, it wasn't really my background. It's just something I learned, you know, and then suddenly decide, and I still work there. I work quite a lot there right now because we're so short-staffed. But to then become very spiritual and to do psychic readings or teach Reiki or do Reiki or do energy healing and do spiritual work, it seems like a little bit of a jump, right? But it's actually what I really am. It's actually the truth of who I really am. And I just had to remember that part about myself. And so in 2017, I started doing readings before I even knew how to do readings, you know, and I literally just kind of threw myself into it and started to putting myself out there, even though I was scared shitless doing any of that. I had a lot of beliefs and a lot of bad experiences from my childhood concerning psychics and anything like that. However, I found back in the day, psychics did things a little bit differently. They did a lot of stuff with hypnosis. They did a lot of readings under hypnosis and stuff like that. We don't do that anymore. Trust me. At least the good ones don't do that anymore. There's no need for somebody to be under hypnosis to do a reading for them. But yeah, because of my bad experiences, that really kind of held me back. But I had to kind of push myself because my higher self told me that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So when you're doubting yourself or you're worried about something that you feel called to do, remember, it's just because you're not comfortable doing it. You just gotta like throw yourself out there, start practicing, start doing the things that you feel inspired and passionate about, and just go for it. Because your passion will push you really far. It will get you where you need to go. So this is why I would never put down the ego or the desire, because ego and desire is what actually gives you the fuel to keep going and to do the things and accomplish the things that you came here to do. And I hope that helps, and I'll see you soon.